Hi everyone. Today I'm here with James Roguski. He's an expert in the WHO treaties that all of us are getting to know about. And I'm going to interview him a little bit about my book because I have emailed to him and he has read it in very short record time. Apparently, I want to know how he feels about the book, and I'm going to ask him some questions about why he does what he does. Okay.
Oh, I thought you said you were going to test me on the book, so that's good. I think I would pass. Um, for those out there who are considering Iris's book, by all means, get it. It is what I think they call in the industry a page turner. You sent it to me, I opened it up, and I didn't close it until I finished it.
Wow.
So it was pleasant reading, although some of the topics are, disturbing. It's maybe unfair because I know you and I know what you've done, and so some of it was familiar, so maybe it was a little bit easier for me. But it's a great book, Iris. You did a great job, and I think there's valuable information in there, not just for what happened and your view of what happened, but it seems like you have an awful lot of plans for the future that comes out towards the end of the book. I didn't know all of that. I'd love to talk to you about that. Uh, yes, we can focus on the problems that we have, but what is it that we want is far more important. So, no, I think the book is great. I hope you get up on the bestseller. It's a beautiful book, and um, some of the words are very, very, very inspiring, almost to the point of tears. You almost got me. I'm a tough guy. I don't cry too much, but it's very touching, very, very touching information. And I think everybody ought to read it. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, James. My book is about conscience, courage, clarity, as well as compassion. And I have listed you in chapter 7. It's about the apostles of science and the cross of silence. And I've listed a whole bunch of scientists and doctors who I feel are apostles of science. You are listed as one of the activists or as well as influencers in this whole medical freedom sphere. And I want people to know, at least since my book is about discovering conscience, what conscience is, or courage, and I want to ask you, why do you do what you do, and how did you get to do what you do? So maybe it would also inspire other people to do what they are meant to do.
I will try to give you a short answer. The first thing that comes to mind is I was in fifth grade. I was raised in a Catholic family, went to parochial school for the first 5 years. That might be a little hint right there. And Sister Mary Ursula was teaching us here in the United States about the national parks of the United States. Now, this was in Ohio. I grew up in Ohio, but we were talking about, the western states, and she was talking about the national parks in California, and she was talking about Yosemite Park. Now, may not mean things to people around the world, but most people refer to it as Yosemite. And as a kid, I was, very devout follower of Saturday morning cartoons. And Bugs Bunny had a friend, Yosemite Sam. So I raised my hand and I said, sister, is it Yosemite or is it Yosemite? And, I didn't know this then, but, in Australia, they have a food product called Vegemite. So it could be Yosemite, it's all pronunciation. They pronounce things different in Britain and Australia, New Zealand, all that sort of thing. But it was the fifth grade when I realized that my teacher could be wrong.
Mm.
And that was the beginning of the end of my parochial school. I went to public school after that. Dropped out of college. I was a straight A student. I was valedictorian. I went to Brown University, which is one of the Ivy Leagues. I studied computer science before there were computers, really. I mean, I learned on punch cards. That's how old I am. Um, and I realized in my senior year that I was being lied to, and I quit. Ended up being a carpenter. Then I ended up working as a manager in a mom and pop urban nutrition store. So I've been very, very much down the rabbit hole of natural health. And while I was working at one of those places, this is about 20 some years ago now, something was nagging at me. It was like life was good, got no complaints really. I have my health, I have a wonderful relationship, doing okay. I had a pickup truck left over from being a carpenter. And I sat there and I said, God, Whatever it is you want me to do, just tell me and I will do it. And it didn't take a nanosecond. I heard in my mind, hear thoughts in your head. A phrase came into my head, which was food grade hydrogen peroxide. And we sold it in the store. I knew what it was. I had some, but I was by no means an expert. And it made me laugh out loud. I was like, I asked God for guidance and I heard food grade hydrogen peroxide. Okay. I had about an hour ride home and I was thinking things like, be careful what you ask for, asking you shall receive. And by the time I was driving through downtown LA on my way home, I had accepted the fact that I had asked a question and I had promised that I would do whatever God wanted me to do. And so when I got home, you got to remember this is 20 years ago, I did a Google search for food grade hydrogen peroxide. I had 3 or 4 reams of paper. Every website that I found, I printed out every word that I could find about food grade hydrogen peroxide. You could do that 20 years ago. Kind of would probably be impossible now. So I had, a stack of paper. I started going through it, highlighting it, started putting it into a book form. And I realized that all of that information was really coming from the same person. Like everybody had copied the work of a gentleman who got to be a good friend. His name was Walter Groats. At the time, he was 85 years old, and he had spent 30 years preaching the benefits of, H2O2, just water with some extra oxygen. I sent him some money. He sent me a couple of £100 of research. He sent me bag after bag of testimonial letters that he had gotten from, people that he had helped through the decades. He learned from Father Wilhelm in Cincinnati, the whole history. Wally was affectionately known as Mr. Peroxide, and he was pleased that some young guy is coming around going to digitize all this work. So I sent him my manuscript, and he gave me his blessing, and that little voice came back, and it said, Jim, give it all away. So I put a page in the book that is a no copyright page. Please copy the book. Please, share it. I don't care what you do, print it out, sell it, do whatever you want. Iris, no sooner did I create the PDF, and you've just gone through writing a book, so you know this, you're never done editing, right? You're working on it and you want to change this and, you look at it again. I put in the no copyright page, and the program that I was using to create the document bombed, and I couldn't get access to the raw document. I only had the PDF. And I took that as a sign that I was done editing. Time to put the book out. Sometimes you need somebody to just tell you to stop. You got to publish it. Then the little voice comes back and says, make a website. So I put together a huge website. I haven't looked at it for 20 years. It is what it was 20 years ago. It looks old, but it's got some really great information on it. Got that all done, put the book in there, gave it all away. And then the voice came back and said, don't tell anybody. And my girlfriend thought I was lost, off my rockers, lost my mind. I said, I don't know what to tell you, dear, but I got to listen to this direction. Okay. So I didn't tell anybody. It's like, okay, that's easy. I could do that. About 6 months later, I'm at work and I'm closing up the store. I'm the only one there. And the voice comes back and says, do a Google search for food grade hydrogen peroxide. And son of a gun, if I wasn't on the first page of results. Now, I don't think I could have done search engine optimization to get myself on the first page. And so it's not there anymore. Probably there's everything. Search engines don't do search anymore. They do something else. But then a couple of weeks later, I was asking, what should I be doing? I took a nap, and all I can do is explain what it felt like to me. I woke up, I'm laying in bed, and it felt like my guardian angel was sitting on my chest, waiting for me to wake up. And it said, Jim, this is what I heard, the thought that came into my head, we'll put it that way. Nobody has the right to try to coerce or force people into doing or believing anything. You have free will. Your job, meaning my job, is to collect information that I am guided to, find is important, and make it easier for people to comprehend what might be hard to find information or complex information or so forth and so on. My job is not to shove it down their throat and make them believe it. My job is to allow them to access the information. And it's God's job, or Spirit, the Holy Spirit's job, to guide people to that information only when they're ready. And so when you look at something like the movie The Matrix, the guiding or the guidance in The Matrix is you can't make people swallow the red pill. You can give them the choice, and I don't ever try to convince anybody of anything. Put the information out there. The people who are ready for it, are guided to it, who, somehow they have asked for their guidance and they find it. They're meant to find it. It's important for them. If they want to talk about it, if they want to discuss it, if they want to learn, if they want to have, a conversation, maybe they've got plenty to share with me. But I don't try to convince people. It's a waste of time, quite frankly, because if somebody doesn't want to know, doesn't matter how hard you yell at them, they just get more defensive. And so, long answer to your basic question, I wake up every morning and I go, God, what do you want me to do today? And sometimes it's talk to Iris. Sometimes it's, whatever it might be. You and I crossed paths a couple of years ago, and nice friendship, long distance. We're, got a Pacific Ocean between us. But, with modern technology, you can make friends and find people, like-minded people all around the world. It's been joyous. I mean, I've always put my phone number in everything I write and on everything I do, and I'll do it at the end of this, video, don't let me forget. When I did that with the peroxide book, I got a phone call one day, and I'm talking to the person for 20 minutes, and I go, I don't recognize the code on, where are you calling me from? He was in a very well-known monastery in the middle of the Sinai Peninsula. And I'm like, I didn't do that. There's a higher power that makes these connections that you can't even begin to try to make it happen, right? So I've learned to ask for guidance, ask for direction, and sometimes it comes in interesting ways. Back in the beginning of 2022, I was out working in my little food forest. I got like 1,000 square foot yard, which is pretty small. And I've got like 17 or 18 fruit trees there. And, I try to grow as much food as I can. And I was out there working, which is what I would love to be doing 24/7 if I could. And I stopped and I looked up at the sky and I said, God, I'm ready for a new role. What would you have me do? And there was no lightning bolt. There was no sudden, like, boom, right? Okay, I guess, take a vacation, right? Take it easy. About a month or so later, I woke up and I checked my emails, and I got an email from my website hosting provider, and they said, we've ended your account. Have a nice life. And a decade worth of stuff disappeared. The peroxide book, that was on a different platform. And my first thought was, oh, God, you've got a sense of humor, right? That means now there's 10 websites that I don't have to maintain and keep up and all that. I wonder what, I wonder what's coming. I mean, I'm actually kind of happy with myself that I took it with grace. It was like, oh, didn't see that coming, but there you go. They didn't tell me what I did. They just, I kind of know what I wrote, and, somebody didn't like it. And, oh, I don't know, a week or so later, I stumbled into some information about the WHO, and I just started, researching an interesting topic. And I wrote a huge article, I think it was March 24th of 2022, about the quote unquote pandemic treaty. And I thought I was done. I was like, okay, I'll go write about something else. And shortly thereafter, I was awakened at 4 in the morning. Like I must go search on the internet for something. And I found a very well hidden document, which were the amendments to the international health regulations that the United States had submitted. And I felt the shiver go down my spine. It was like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. That's different. That's different than the treaty. Nobody knows about this. Everybody's talking about that. And, been on that ride ever since. So, short answer to, that's a long-winded answer, but the short answer is don't ask what God can do for you. Ask what you can do for God and, humanity and everybody else. There's plenty of work to be done.
Yeah. Thank you for this very, very nice story. I got a lot from what you've shared. And one of the things that stood out to me is that you're very obedient. You ask and you listened and you obeyed. And one thing led to another just out of faith, right? And
If someone were to read your book, I mean, I can see in there, you're like, that little voice is saying, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm trying to repeat what I read in your book. And I know your story. At a certain point in the middle of COVID, you're like, wait a minute, something's wrong, right? Something's wrong. And I'm not, my career, or, I'm speaking as your career wasn't about being an activist, you're a musician and talented and all that. But you had to, okay? And so at some point, when you know something, you have to share it. And I try to explain it this way. I pronounce a word in the English language very differently than everybody else. And to prepare for that mispronunciation or different pronunciation, I don't know everything. I'm not aware of everything. If you were to talk to me about music, I don't know very much at all about music. I could do only learning, right? But there's a difference between being unaware and whether you want to learn about something or not, that's up to you. But if you know about something and you choose to ignore it, pretend it doesn't exist, that is the definition of someone who is ignorant. It doesn't mean you're stupid. It doesn't mean you're, not intelligent. It's actually worse. When you know something is good, right? Well, share it with all your friends. Don't keep it to yourself, right? Share the joy. When you know something is bad or wrong or, quite frankly, evil, and you go along with it and you ignore the reality, and you don't speak up, when they say ignorance of the law is no justification, right? If you know that what you're doing could harm somebody and you do it anyways for your own protection, um, you know, I'm not one to judge. I learned that judgment is going to be between you and your creator. But man, you're messing with fire if you know. Now, a lot of people don't want to know. And so they hide themselves from that and they remain blissfully unaware. They don't want to know the truth. And that's not good either. And so I try to practice the scientific method. I try to question the things that I think I know and things that I believe. I, I forget who it was who just recently told me, but in conversations, like, well, there's the word lie right in the middle of belief. And it's dangerous. You have to question the things that you think you know, because it's very easy for people to be lied to accept that lie and then regurgitate it. And, every time you repeat it, it gets deeper embedded. And when the truth comes along, you may or may not recognize it. And if you recognize it and you reject it, you're living a lie. And so I think a lot of people through COVID were lied to, but they accepted those lies and absolutely refused to challenge them. And that, I think, is the pervasive problem that we have as part of the human condition. I did an interview 20 years ago when I was doing the peroxide book, and the person asked me a question, and I don't even know why this answer came out, but the discussion was, A good day is when you learn something new. You should try to learn something. Nowadays, you got to learn a million things. But a great day is when somebody says, hey, Jim, you're wrong. And I'll show you why you're wrong. And then they proceed to show me that I was wrong. Oh, you are my best friend. And so the joke around the house is my girlfriend does that about 100 times a day. It's fantastic. It makes you a better person. But if you refuse to challenge or allow someone else to challenge whether or not, your beliefs or your knowledge base or your theories or hypotheses are wrong, you're living a lie. I try to be open to new information as much as possible. And that's how you get inspiration. You get insight, you get inspiration because you're open to it. And the more you're open to it, the more it comes from all over the place. I'm rambling here, so stop me anytime you want. But I had a wonderful lesson when I was renovating old homes. I'd gotten to the point where I was managing projects, renovating old Victorian homes in New England. And we had a hard time hiring people, keeping people. People didn't want to work. And so we hired this one young guy. He didn't finish high school. He was dropped out of high school. And I asked him to do a very simple job. And I turned around and he was gone. And I was like, did I offend him? It's like, what? It wasn't like a hard task or anything. And the way the house was structured, it was a big house, and I went in one direction, and he had obviously gone in that same direction. He went outside, came back around, and by the time I got back to where we started, he was almost done with the job that I had given him because he had gone to go get a tool that he knew would make that job go faster. And he taught me how to do the job that I asked him to do better than I would have taught him to do it. And so I realized, hey, if you're open, you can learn from anybody. And, that was an easy lesson. All I had to do was chase them around the house once and, come back and learn something. But the problem is people who have letters after their names, degrees and whatever, there's a reason why they say, doctor, because they've been indoctrinated. They've, beaten into submission to be salespeople for big pharma. And then people look at the white coats, or they look at the suit and the tie, or they look at the titles or the letters after their names, and they trust authority. And so I was blessed going all the way back to 5th grade with Yosemite Park. It's like, well, just because somebody's a teacher, just because somebody is a doctor or a lawyer or a politician or whatever, it doesn't mean that they're always right. Now, they might be right. If they're right and you can test what they say, then that's good. Maybe listen to them the next time. But they could be so wrong. And this is the scary part about AI. I have caught Google's AI and Grok and ChatGPT and name some other ones. I've caught them lying so bold. And I'll take that back. I don't know that they have a conscience that they know it's wrong and they're doing it on purpose. So I'll say that they were feeding me misinformation, right? And then you go, hey, wait a minute. How about this? And they'll come back with a reply just as confident in the righteousness of their answer after you just caught them being wrong, okay? So, hey, people, AI is only as correct as you believe it to be. It will give you bad information. I've done legal searches, and it has made up court cases and made up quotations and page. It's like, wow, I don't know what kind of mushrooms that AI is doing, but it's hallucinating all over the place. So, don't fear AI. Fear your fellow men, women, and children treating AI like their new God, their new know-it-all authority, their new doctor, their new teacher, their new, politician. If you're prone to believing BS, AI is made for you because it, right? Somebody asked me a couple of years ago. I was born in April, and they were asking me, how old I was and what my zodiac sign was and how I got into doing what I'm doing. And it wasn't until I think I was turning 62 at the time. I'm 65 now. And it took me like 62 years to put this all together. I was born under the sign of Taurus, the bull. And most of what I do is write about bullshit. And so it's a full-time job. Somebody born under the sign of the bull is pretty good at pointing out bullshit when you step in it. And if you haven't developed that BS meter where you read something from ChatGPT and you go, that's not right. But then you do a search on Google and you get Google's AI telling you the same propaganda. Okay. We are at risk of having this new authority figure be, quite frankly, giving us wrong information, giving us inaccurate information, but doing it with such confidence. And people just are kneeling at the altar of the new authority figure. And that's the part that I find frightening. There was a bumper sticker that they used to put around on cars when I was growing up, question authority. And that is more important today than probably it ever was.
Yeah, so I think what you have touched on very important points, which is so like and I think the not believing anything, it's a very, I mean, that's basically how people get the truth, right?
Let me turn this around to your book, okay? What did you do other than ask questions of authority? You're like, hey, excuse me, but it's kind of like the emperor, with the child who points out that the emperor has no clothes. You're like, hey, wait a minute, these mRNA jabs, you can't possibly know the long-term consequences because they just started making them a couple months ago, right? You ask a question and you get attacked for asking a legitimate question. Quite frankly, Iris, what did you do other than ask a question of authority and get attacked for pointing out the obvious? Okay. Well, I can't tell you how many people I deal with these days who go, oh, well, Grok said this and ChatGPT said that, and Claude, said this. I'm like, you can use those tools to beneficial, purpose. They have their place. You said you're not against it. I'm not against it either. I mean, I studied artificial intelligence 45 years ago. It's not nothing new, right? But if your intelligence is subservient to their dictate, that's on you.
Yeah.
If you can't say no to your doctor, if you can't say no to your employer, and you can't say no or challenge, ChatGPT or Grok or any of the other ones, that's on you. I've had so many experiences where you just go, you ask ChatGPT or you do a Google search or whatever it might be. There might be something in there that gives you an idea. And then you open up to that idea and you get insights. And it can be great as sort of a memory jogger or an organizer or whatever if you use it as a proper tool. But if you think that you're getting all the truth from a search on any search engine or any artificial intelligence platform, boy, you are not paying attention. And people have gotten addicted to it, and it's pretty scary. It's pretty scary. But what did you do, Iris, other than go, hey, what are y'all doing? Why are we dividing society because you say that everybody has to do the same thing? Am I not allowed to ask a question about what you're doing? Your story is pretty interesting, and hope people realize. I know only a little bit about Singapore, and I think it's harder to buck authority in Singapore than it is in the United States. It's far more lonely. There's more people here who are independent minded. And so kudos to you for what you've done and what you're obviously continuing to do.
Yeah, thank you. And I think I really like what you said today, because you also said that people need to be ready for the information, and information or truth shouldn't be pushed down anybody's throat. And and before we even get to this desire for truth, is this curiosity and this being able to have an open mind
Hmm.
about being wrong. And this this openness to being wrong is so important if we want to live a life that is based on truth.
Hmm.
uh, at least, uh I mean, truth in a way. At times there is the, I do not really think about absolute truth or anything, but the thing is that sometimes information comes to us when we need to know. Okay, like when you need to know about the hydrogen peroxide comes to
Hmm.
you, you
Hmm.
know, something else. But what you are really demonstrating to me is having a childlike mind,
Yeah.
and not believing, right, anything or anybody that is like, and their beliefs. Okay, because and it's actually okay. I'm married to a Buddhist. Okay, Raymond's a
Hmm.
Buddhist, and he said that in Buddhism, this is one of the very important tenets, or thing, is that they don't believe anything, as in, like, not, they're told not to believe authority, especially. That is because that's one of the things that can cloud people's mind, and that can lead us to, seeing illusions, which is basically not reality, right? So I really liked. I mean, I remember you telling me the story about the how you stumbled upon WHO and all that. Today, the peroxide thing is completely new, and your Yosemite is new as well. Okay, but I think it is really important, and it's because of this quest, okay, for knowing the truth,
Hmm.
that has led you to where you are. and you're definitely one of the persons that I really respect and admire a lot. That's why you're in my book, because science and the truth needs apostles. I mean, to me, the way I see truth is it's like a flower. It's actually quite fragile, right?
Hmm.
Being trampled upon by so many things, and it could be authority, it could be AI, it could be all kinds of things. But we as humans, okay, humanity, we have to be the ones to protect it. And we must, I mean, first value that it is important to have this, to know what are the facts. If we are not even knowing what are the facts, we are really grasping at straws, and
Hmm.
grasping at all these things when we are trying to improve anything, right? So if you're wanting to improve health, but you are actually just, given propaganda, and you're just reacting based on all these uh myths of health, myths about this or what somebody else said, then we may be going down a very bad road. And so yeah.
I I've realized recently that I have, for the most part, stepped away from the vast majority of social media. I mean, I write and put my work out on Substack, and technically I have a Twitter account and I have a Facebook account that they won't let me log into, but yet it's all still there. And so I actually have to go back a couple of years to think about the last times that I was really on Facebook. And what I had learned was that if someone is criticizing something that you may have said or written, and they're bringing evidence, they're bringing documentation, then you have a discussion, you have a debate. If someone's reply is to call you names, if they jump into an ad hominem attack, it actually brings a smile to my face, because you're winning. They can't argue the facts of the case. They call you names, they try to slander you, they try to, tell people stories, whatever it may be. And so the last little bit of time that I spent on Facebook, I realized quite some time ago in my life, I realized that, you don't want to hold in your anger. Okay, you got to let it come out, because it bottled up, it'll, it's cancerous. But it's also not necessarily good to immediately, get angry back at the thing that might trigger you. And so I've learned to put like a containment vessel around my anger or my rage, because there's a lot of things in the world that, can make you angry because they're horrible. But then you have a pressure relief valve, and you can direct that energy to do some good work. Okay. And so I learned that I would go on Facebook, and it would probably take about 30 or 45 seconds before I would find something that would just piss me off. And rather than engage in it, I'd be like, okay, I was a little tired. I was dragging. I didn't have energy. I would consciously go, you know what? I need a pick me up. I need a boost. I don't want to get all caffeinated. Let me go get some adrenaline from the anger of somebody just saying something that triggers you. Whatever. Don't engage. Take that energy and go do some good work with it. You can, when you learn how to identify, when you're self-aware and you can identify your powerful emotions, and then take that energy, energy and motion, take that energy and put it to work at whatever it is you want to do. I'll give you one little pertinent example. Long story, I'm going to make it short. Here in the United States, they currently have 4 COVID-19 vaccines that are available to somebody who's over 65. Okay, I am 65 years old. I am in their target demographic. Everywhere I go on the internet, I see advertisements, go get your COVID jab, right? So they had set it up in the United States where what was supposed to happen was, if you're healthy, you don't need it, but you can go and have a conversation with your doctor or your pharmacist. It's supposed to be like shared responsibility, right? Go have a discussion. So my girlfriend and I went to the local grocery store and walked across the street to the local CVS pharmacy, waited in line. I brought my phone and my camera, so I recorded it just so I could be clear on what was actually said. The poor guy in front of me got off to the side and got a couple of jabs, and one in each arm. And so when I get up to the counter, I said to the pharmacist, I'm 65, and I know that there's 4 COVID-19 vaccines that are available to me. Would you be kind enough to print out the information about those so that I could look it over and make a decision? Well, I knew the decision was going to be no, but his answer was, oh, we don't have any information like that. That's all the energy I need for the next half a year. That is so enraging, okay? That is what the world is doing with what is supposed to be informed consent. Now, a lot of people don't ask. They're programmed, they walk up, they go, hey, give it to me, I want it, and they go off to the side and they get poisoned. When you can identify something that gets you energized, whatever that, whether it's love and joy and excitement and celebration, or rage and anger and frustration or whatever, don't throw it back at the person who triggered that. They got their own problems. Okay. You don't know their story. Try to take that energy and turn it into doing something good for yourself or for other people. A lot of times people go, hey, Jim, you put out a lot of work. Well, I don't waste any time arguing with people on social media. And I do research, and I do what the Spirit has told me to do, which is take complicated information, try to make it so that people who want it will find it valuable. And, that's the contribution that you can have to the planet.
Wow. Thank you so much, James, and for sharing this. I would say is a wisdom, really wisdom, because because there's so many people getting scammed these days by many things.
They're getting more and more sophisticated. It is getting harder and harder to tell what is real. But, I think you said it very good in a previous conversation that we had. what's going to be more valuable is what's more real. And, the the things that are valuable are those personal relationships, where that you're talking to a human being. Because online, you never know. The unique talent, skill, personality, and insight and inspiration that each person has, nobody can take that away from you. That's the value you bring to society, to life, and let it shine.
Yeah, let it shine. Thank you so much, James, for this interview. And you'll be the first person on my Raw podcast, which I'll be starting. I'll be interviewing people in my book that I have featured because I really respect what they do. And please continue to let your light shine and continue to do whatever that you are doing so well for humanity, and by letting the world know what's going on at the WHO, World Health Organization.
Well,
Thank
thank you, Iris. I support you in everything you do. It's been a blessing to know you.
you.